In today's video, guys, we are going to go through my personal team of the season in the Premier League. My Premier League team of the season for 2022-23. As I said, my opinion. So if you disagree with any of these, that's absolutely fine. You can put your team of the season in the comments down below. I'd be very interested to see what everyone else thinks and, compare it with my own team. You can already see one of them there. I'm going to be dragging them onto the pitch one by one. We're going to go from goalkeeper all the way up to striker. And it's going to be interesting because it is such a divisive thing, picking the best 11 players from a season, especially when there is still a couple of weeks to go. But I think we've seen enough, okay? I don't think someone that hasn't deserved to be in the team of the season by now is going to have enough time to really push themselves into it. Unless, let's say, Harry Kane went on to score 15 goals in the next 5 games or whatever, then maybe. But then you've got Haaland. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw in the first player, and that is, of course, Alisson. It's very, very difficult to argue against Alisson. I think, some people would say you base it off clean sheets, therefore De Gea, but no, I don't think so. Some stats are, I think, very unfair. Clean sheets is not just the goalkeeper, it's the defenders in front of them. And if you look at stats and how many goals that Alisson has prevented, and it's pretty difficult to argue. And, with the goalkeeper position, you could always, every season, have a couple of goalkeepers with a shout. Ramsdale is up there. I think Kepa at times has actually been very good. I wouldn't say team of the season worthy, though. So for me, with Liverpool having such a tough season, and I'll go ahead and throw this out there now, he's the only Liverpool player making it into my 11. He has kept them within shout of that top 6, top 5 for many, many games when they were struggling. So he goes straight in, and of course you will see the next player after that. So let's go Alisson in. And as you can see, I have Trippier as my right back choice. There's not many other right backs that I would say deserve to be ahead of Trippier. You could make an argument for Ben White. I'm sure a lot of Arsenal fans would say that he's been incredible, and rightly so. He has been very good, but for me, Trippier is the complete right back. Not only is he more experienced than Ben White, he is better going forward than Ben White. And you could also make some arguments that he has really contributed to Newcastle's incredible defensive record this season. There's no doubt that Trippier deserves to be in there. I can't really think of anyone else other than Ben White and Trippier. Not off the top of my head. I think Reece James would have had a shout if he didn't pick up his injuries. Of course, he's an incredible player. And there are some other shouts, and we'll get on to players that didn't quite make it into my 11 later on in this video. But Trippier is going to be my right back, and then we will go into centre-backs. My first choice centre-back, let me just move Alisson down a little bit, otherwise we're just not going to have space, are we? I'm probably going to run out of space no matter what. Let's just shift Trippier over here. Saliba. Obviously, we're going to be picking 2 centre-backs. I'm going with a 4-3-3 for this. I, again, found it difficult to argue against it. And of course, I'm an Arsenal fan. You can see behind me loads of Arsenal memorabilia and merchandise. I'm a huge Arsenal fan, and I love Saliba. One of the arguments I'm going to make here is just the pure fact that in the last few weeks, without him, we've crumbled, quite literally. And I would say, although it's not a guarantee and we will never know, I would also make the point that we've potentially lost the league because we lost Saliba. When Holding came in, you could see a huge dip. And of course, it can't be just that. The pressure really got to the whole team. But Saliba has had a very, very impressive season. His first Premier League season with Arsenal. And at times, I think he was comfortably the best centre-back in the league this season. And I think that says a lot. So he goes into my team. And up next to him, I've gone with another Newcastle player. And I think, again, just a case of having it very difficult to argue against it. Botman, and I've gone with a left-footed centre-back because I think that's what you'd want in a team of the season. The best balanced duo. I mean, I guess you just go based off stats and who's performed the best. And honestly, I couldn't think of anyone else. Maybe Lisandro Martinez, who is also left-footed, which of course makes more sense as well. And then there's the typical Diaz, I mean, you could even put Gabriel in there from Arsenal as well. At times, I think Gabriel has been at the same level, if not better, than Saliba. But I just think Saliba edges Gabriel, and I think Botman just edges Gabriel as well. So those are going to be my two centre-backs. But I think Lisandro Martinez... Is it Lisandro? Yeah, I was thinking of Lautaro for a second there. I think the Butcher, Martinez, and Gabriel are probably very close behind. Quick shout out for Thiago Silva, though. I would make the point that despite Chelsea having an absolutely torrid season, defensively, they haven't been that shambolic in terms of just the amount of goals they've conceded. It could have been a lot worse, and I think Thiago Silva is a big reason for that. So I think definitely Botman comes in. And then for left back, I've gone with Luke Shaw. It's a tricky one, again, because you've got Zinchenko, you've got Ake, but is he a left back or is he a centre back? I think it's very close between Ake and Shaw. And the reason I've gone with Shaw is because a lot of the season he's actually played out of position, or some of the recent games he's definitely been out of position playing as a centre back. But also, now I'm doubting myself. Should I put Ake in instead? I don't know. That's a really tricky one. I think there's going to be a lot of City players in this conversation for every position. And I feel like United should have at least one or two players in the team this season because of their league position. They're in the top four for a reason. So, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go with Luke Shaw as my left back. But Ake, if you can count him as a left back, very, very close. And Zinchenko's not far off. But we mustn't forget Zinchenko has made some big errors. And he didn't play a lot in the first few weeks of the season with injury. Yeah, maybe I'm being harsh on Zinchenko, but I'm going to go with Luke Shaw. So then we move on to my midfield. There is only one player that can play in the middle of that midfield of a 4-3-3. There is no one else. If you try and argue anything else, for me, Rodri might be the best defensive midfielder in the world. In fact, I think he definitely is. I think Busquets is close, still at his prime age. And obviously you've got Thomas Partey, Casemiro in the Premier League, but Rodri just defines that Man City midfield. Everything about him. He gets them ticking. He feeds De Bruyne. He feeds the wingers. He is just so good at what he does. And I don't think this team could exist without Rodri. He is the best defensive midfielder in the Premier League this season, and I would argue potentially in the world as well. So he goes in. And next to him, I am going to go ahead and put in the mighty Kevin De Bruyne. Again, how can you disagree with De Bruyne being in the team of the season? Well, maybe some people would argue that a couple of players might just be in or around there in that position, just purely because De Bruyne wasn't the most consistent player this season. But I think when you really think about it, it's because he has set his standards so high. If that was Thiago with his performance this season, or if it was Bruno, who's been very good this season. But what I'm trying to say is De Bruyne is expected to be at this level. And he might not have had, stats-wise, the best season he's ever had, but he has still been influential, especially in the last few weeks, with Man City getting to the top of the table and dominating in potentially 3 competitions. They could win the treble. Without De Bruyne, I don't think Haaland breaks records. I don't think Haaland gets as many goals. He is just, well, he's exceptional. What I'm going to do is just make a bit more space here, because otherwise we are definitely going to run out of position space for everyone else. So let's drop Rodri just a little bit deeper like that. So De Bruyne is obviously going in. And I think it was obvious who was coming next, guys. It had to be Martin Ødegaard. I'd say probably my favourite player at Arsenal right now. He's the top scoring midfielder in Europe this season, and I believe he's 2 away from breaking the Premier League record for most goals scored by a midfielder. Don't quote me on that. I might be slightly wrong. But Ødegaard, I think, might be... There's so many good Arsenal players this season, but I would say the fact that he's captain as well and he's leading by example really... I want to say he's been our best player this season, but I don't know. There's a few. He's the second Arsenal player to make it into my team, so you can't say that I'm being biased here. Otherwise, I'd have Arsenal players everywhere, but I don't think you could do this year's team of the season without Ødegaard in it. He has been exceptional, and he completes, I think, the best midfield three this season. I think this would be the best midfield in the world if it was like this. But we do have another Arsenal player coming in now, guys. And maybe some people disagree purely because of the last few weeks and that he's dropped off maybe slightly. But throughout this entire season, with Arsenal and for England, he has been so impressive. Bukayo Saka has to be in the team of the season. One of the youngest players and one of the best players in his position. Not too many right wingers have come close, in my opinion. It's difficult to think of any other right winger that's absolutely dominated this position this season. I think Saka is truly remarkable. For what he's doing at his age is quite rare. And the fact he's doing it at my club makes me so proud. I've obviously got the number 7 shirt there, Saka, which is hand signed by him. I'm hoping that is going to be, something I absolutely treasure. Imagine if in a few seasons Saka just doesn't go anywhere. Can you see that happening? No. Saka is going to be a world-class player. You could argue he's on his way there now. He's almost world-class already. So for me, he has to be in my team. And then we've got over on the left side, I'm just going to have to move him up like that. Could there be any other option, really? Rashford on the left side, he has had one of his best seasons ever. And I absolutely love Rashford for what he's done off the pitch as well with, the food crisis, feed the kids, feed the children. And he's such an example of a player that went through a tough time last season and just came back with a vengeance. And I've got to say, fair play to Ten Hag. I think what Ten Hag has done with Rashford is incredible. He's gone from being a player that you could argue was on his way out. I think a lot of United fans would agree with me. A lot of people would have been saying maybe it's time to cash in on Rashford because he was just having such a poor time. But now, he could be one of the most valuable players in this team in terms of market value. He is, he's almost priceless for Manchester United. They cannot lose him. They won't lose him. He's a United boy. He's come through the academy. And he's one of my favourite players to watch. Every game, at one point this season, just after the World Cup and going into February, March, it was basically guaranteed that Rashford would score for Manchester United. Almost every game. And I remember when they came to the Emirates and he scored in the first half, and I really worried. Such a dangerous player. But of course, that means there's one last position. You guys know who it is. Do I even need to mention it? Let's be honest. If, again, just like the Rodri one, if you think anyone else deserves this position, I don't know what to say. Yes, Harry Kane has been incredible. And even people throwing in like Tone. No, Haaland has quite literally broken a record that has been around for more than 2 decades. He is the all-time top scorer in a Premier League season. And there is still 5 or 6 games left for Man City. It's a joke. It really is. So, of course, Haaland has to go into this team. He has been the best performing player in the Premier League this season based off stats alone. And the craziest thing is, right, if you were to watch him on the pitch, I wouldn't even say he's been the best player. He's just such a clinical finisher. He's a record breaker. And there is a reason why I think Haaland will go on to be the best player in the world. Not too long. Messi and Ronaldo have had their time. I don't think that we're going to be seeing Ronaldo and Messi as the best players ever again now. It's over to Mbappe, Haaland, Pedri, Bellingham, these kind of names that everyone talks about. But for me, no one is ahead of Haaland. At his age, it's quite astonishing. It really is. And I'm so excited to see what he achieves. It just sucks he had to go to Man City, didn't it? He just had to. Why? Why? If he went anywhere else, we could have enjoyed it even more. But fair play to City for getting him in and getting him working. A lot of people thought that he would score a lot of goals for City, but that he would struggle because they don't really play with a striker. But does it matter? When you get a player like Haaland, you build the team around him, and with De Bruyne and Rodri feeding him in the same team, it's a joke. So my thoughts on this team now that I'm looking at it. I do question how I haven't got any Man City players in defence. I think Ake might deserve it ahead of Luke Shaw. So Ake is definitely an honourable mention, very close to being in there. But I have appreciated what Luke Shaw's done for United this season. Harry Kane, of course, absolutely should be talked about. Even though Tottenham have been shambolic this season, he has still been remarkable. And I fear for Spurs, if they lose him, it's going to be a tough one. In terms of midfielders, you could look at Bruno Guimaraes from Newcastle, Bruno from Manchester United. Thomas Partey would definitely have a shout as well if Rodri wasn't so good. And of course, in goal, I would like to say Ramsdale deserves a shout because he has been so good for us. The last few moments of that game at Anfield against Liverpool, he was, incredible. But I'm happy with this. And like I said at the start, a lot of people will disagree with it, and that's totally fine. I understand, and you're more than entitled to have different opinions, but please keep it civil. You don't need to be rude to me. Just let me know what your team would be. And thank you for watching. I've enjoyed putting this together. I should mention, basically, I was going to do a career mode video, but the EA servers are down today, so I haven't been able to get on and record. So that'll be back tomorrow. But I used this opportunity to do my team of the season. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I don't think I'd make any other changes. The only thing that I'm really struggling with is the fact I haven't got a City player in defence. So maybe Ake should have been there.